Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Screams and Sorrow, the podcast where we're talking about everything emo and metal. My name is Eric, the aka Elder E-Monk, and today with me I have again John Bernardo.
Yo.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I am doing well. How about you, sir?
Not too bad. I'm excited. I think a lot of people liked our first episode. At least we got some comments. We got some people that seem to like the conversation we're having. So we're back again with a new album, which isn't so new. I think it came out like a month ago about at this point.
Give or take.
Yeah, but the band that we're going to be reviewing today is Dying Wish and their new album called Symptoms of Survival. It came out November 3rd, and I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, man. Let's just jump right in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. So this was actually one of the bands that they're signed with Sharptone Records, and Sharptone Records is actually very cool with reactors. And this was one of the bands that I actually got to listen to their songs a couple days before public release and do a reaction video for them. So that was really cool. And along with that, we got a little bit of information about it. So just right off the bat, I wanted to talk at least based off of, as they were writing the album, what they were going for. The main vocalist, her name is Emma Boster. She wrote that Symptoms of Survival is an 11-part piece covering the complexity of human suffering in all forms, from the honest and personal perspective of heartbreak, painful trauma, loss, rage, and regret, to the more objective perspective of war, greed, and ultimate survival. So, John, is that what you got from this album?
I don't know if I got all that. I won't lie. My focus was a lot on the music itself, more over the lyrics. So I do feel like I'm missing a good chunk of the purpose behind the album. I can feel that. Like, now that you say it, I can feel that coming from her, but I can't honestly say that I felt that in the moment.
Yeah. It's funny with sometimes albums and even movies just go right over my head when they have this overarching theme to them. And when you go back to it, and you start picking apart the lyrics, you can probably get it a little bit more. But I think that's still cool. It seems like, they obviously had their theme that they were going for it here. And like you said, now that you kind of read it, there's definitely some songs that I think stand out alongside that message. But yeah, give me your overall thoughts of this album.
My overall thoughts, I mean, when I first heard it, I just threw it on because I heard people talking about it, and it blew me away because it's very, simple than compared to everything else. It's pretty much chug fest, but it really pays tribute to a lot of the kind of early metalcore, early hardcore. Heck, we're even going to a little bit of melodic death metal, like In Flames, Dark Tranquility. We're going old school stuff like that. So there's a lot of everything in it. I would say what it resembles most to me is Unearth, if they continued to grow. I feel like Unearth kind of took a little bit of a plateau and got a little stagnant on where they were going with their sound, but I feel like Dying Wish takes that and builds on it a little bit more. But it does remind me of early Unearth when they were really hungry and really pushing the boundaries of metal and hardcore. But overall, I do feel like we'll get into it as we talk about certain songs. I do feel like at some points, some of the songs kind of blend in together, and that obviously comes along with the chugging the chugging breakdowns, right? They they all kind of fall in line. They do feel like they're all a part of each other. I think that's the issue when you're making this type of album versus everything else that's out there, is that when you have, depending on how you pace it out, when you have this many breakdowns and they sound so similar in their execution and in their patterns and in the vibe that they throw off, it can kind of come on a little bit repetitive at the end of the day. But I mean, those are breakdowns for you. But I just feel like in this album, to me, the way that the album was paced out, it stood out more that I got to a point, if I'm just listening to it without focusing on what track I'm on, I sometimes forget, wait, what song am I? Did I not just hear this breakdown on that last song? What's going on?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we had a lot of the similar kind of takes from this. In my notes, I mentioned like there's a lot of what I felt like punk vibes that I kind of really liked. Like to me, you mentioned Unearth, but to me, I went kind of the opposite spectrum where like this sounds like if A Day to Remember went even heavier. Because
Wow.
because
I would nowhere close to that.
yeah, because it had like it definitely has some poppy vibes that comes from like that like old school metalcore, like you're mentioning from the 2000s. Like the things is a lot of songs, what they resemble the most to me, to kind of grab from some comparisons to me, where early Killswitch Engage and like Bullet for My Valentine really stood out to me. And you mentioned like the chugs. Obviously, there were definitely some catchy choruses in here, and I think some songs lent to that more. I put here in my notes, shout out to 2 minute songs, because I definitely appreciated that. But you're right, because a lot of the songs kind of blended in, and because a lot of them were like 2 minutes long. At one point I'm like, okay, am I on the same song, or did I jump over to another song
Yeah.
here? And that's what happened to me. So yeah, why don't we jump in and let me know a little bit about some of the songs you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, we can even. I feel like they're so quick. I have something for each song, so we can start from the top. So like track one, "Symptoms of Survival," right? Wait, is the first track called "Symptoms of Survival"?
Yep.
Am I just crazy?
It
Okay,
is.
sorry. I'm like, did I write down the wrong title? Yeah. So "Symptoms of Survival," the first one right after the bat. Great start. This one feels like a little bit of Hatebreed
Okay.
influence. Hatebreed and Unearth, as I said. The riffs, very commanding riffs, very powerful, and it's pretty much sets the stage for a sample of what you expect to come. There's nothing more than that. It is straightforward. It is in your face, and it gets its point across. Good song
Yeah.
overall, though.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I noted it. A very energetic start to the album, which I appreciated. The entire song is harsh vocals from beginning to end, right? So there's none of that kind of clean or melodic, catchy choruses. It's all harsh. I also found the drumming to be very fun in this track. So yeah, I think it was a nice, energetic start, kind of giving you a little bit of taste of what you're going to get in this album.
Yeah. Let's I think I think compared to our first episode, I don't think there's as in-depth analysis that's going to be required on these songs. So I feel like I feel like it's pretty top level. I have some more notes on the ones that are coming up for sure. So I'll jump into the next one. "Watch My Promise Die." I like, they do a lot of this in the album where they kind of do these little weird held chords, where they're just kind of mixing notes that don't usually go with the chord. And I don't know any other way to describe it other than that, but it just sounds like there are extra notes that you don't usually hear in a typical chord. And that stood out to me. But then the part that comes right after that, and this is going to happen a lot throughout the album, is that they have this very unique chorded part, and then they just forget the keys that they're on, forget the melody that they're on, and then let's just go straight into an open breakdown. It's the same open, right? We're not even trying to do it on any other note. We're just keeping it open, and it always throws me off because it feels like insert breakdown here. The breakdowns are all solid. I'm not shitting on the breakdowns at all. It's just always feel, and I've always had this thing where when a song just abruptly goes into a breakdown and it's just open instead of just kind of even doing something with the same melody that you just did, always just kind of throws me up. But other than that, it's a blessing and a curse. You get a little bit of both. And then it kind of just jumps into like a Darkest Hour type of riff.
Okay.
Right.
Are we talking like As I Lay Dying?
I'm maybe you're saying As I Dying. I found another song that sounded like As I Lay Dying. To me, this sounded like Darkest Hour. And then we get the melodic singing, our first melodic singing on this one. And I really, really like her voice. It's not overproduced at all. It sounds very raw, but layered at the same time. Like it still sounds full. And it reminds me of, I told you on the last episode, I wrestled a bear once,
right,
which was Courtney's old band, and there was a girl before her that sang in that band. And the cleans kind of remind me of that girl's cleans. Her name's escaping me right now, but it reminds me of that. And I actually do have spirit box influences later in this album, but I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Watch My Promise Die was I think the second song that I reacted to them. The first one being Torn from My Silhouette. And I remember liking this one a lot. I thought, the first thing that jumped out to me was like, this has some incredible early 2000s style riffing, which really stood out to me, and I love a song that kind of transports me back to a certain location
The whole album
or area.
does, really.
Yeah, and when I was it was like 2004, 2005, and I was living in Toronto, and I remember I was taking the subway a lot in Toronto. Well, I just said Toronto. In Toronto, I was taking the subway a lot, and I remember having like an MP3 player that was like a Sony one. It was like, I think 64 megs or something. Like it could hold maybe like 20 songs at most. But I had in there like It Dies Today from Autumn to Ashes, Kill Switch Engage, I've obviously mentioned. And this song with the riffs specifically, like I felt I was riding the subway.
Nice.
And even though it wasn't, a one for one, copy by any means, it's just the vibe of it kind of transported me back. And I really, really like that. And, coming from obviously I grew up listening to a lot of punk and emo music and kind of want to establish a little bit more what I'm talking about. Like if you listen to bands like Silverstein or Senses Failed, they have a lot of that kind of melodic riffing in their music as well. The difference is that Dying Wish adds in, like you said, the breakdown, which you don't get, typically in like an emo music, right? So I thought, and the thing obviously about like just emo in general, or like that early melodic metalcore from back in the day, was it was very catchy. Like it kept your attention, and I felt this song did a good job, kind of as a follow up to the first one, to really kind of establish itself and let you know. But the influences there from that early 2000s vibe is definitely there. But overall, I like the song. I think it's up there in like the top 5 of the album, if you will.
Yeah, it's definitely a stronger one for sure.
The next one is Starved, and I really didn't have a whole lot of feedback for this one, or kind of thoughts. And I think a lot of my thoughts here are kind of comparing it to like earlier songs, and I think that's my best way of explaining it. But honestly, that's just it's just what the album does for me, right? But for me, the notes that I put here for the Starve was, it's just a open string chug fest with some Bullet for My Valentine vibes.
It's so funny when it comes to metalcore, like especially from what we grow up with, and what you call it back to, right? Because you're saying Bullet for My Valentine, I'm saying As I Lay Dying on this one, and then it turns into a little bit more of, this is where we get a little bit of the Swedish melodic death metal influence as well. But to me, I hear more As I Lay Dying with the way they build up. But
so are we talking bands like Amon Amarth?
No, I'm talking, when I say melodic death metal, I'm talking about At the Gates, In Flames, Dark Tranquility. I'm drawing on some other blanks right now. Those are the top ones off the top of my head right now. Some other ones will come to my head after, but those are the ones that I'm thinking about from way back in the day, late 90s. Children of Bodom.
Okay.
A little bit of Arch Enemy, right? Like those kind of bands, Soilwork. That kind of era.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
But yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Heaven Shall Burn, actually. Heaven Shall Burn's a great, they're not like that, but like they're a great comparison when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, this one to me, same thing, right? Like As I Lay Dying, Breakdown Fest. The first half of the song sounds to me just sounds like an As I Lay Dying song all the way through.
Yeah, and
that's what I said. Go ahead.
I was going to wonder what like all the listeners are going to think about this, just kind of because like literally when we get to the next 2 songs, I have them broken down by sections as to like exactly what song they sound like.
Yeah. And it's what I said in the beginning. I feel like this is kind of like a love letter to what this band is probably listened to. It doesn't sound like a ripoff, but it also doesn't sound like it's not, like it sounds like it is. It's not a copy. It just sounds influenced. I guess is the best word to use. It's just heavily influenced by the band. You can hear you can hear what bands they wear on their sleeve, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like if I can use a video games reference, I don't know if anyone will understand this, but like recently this year, a game, sorry, came out called Liza P, which is essentially like a Souls kind of Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Sekiro kind of influenced game. I'm not going to call it a ripoff, and it was a great game. Like it's one of my favorite games of the year because they're one of the few that actually imitated but made it their own and made it fresh and made it exciting, and it's a good game, right? I kind of feel like that's a lot of what we're getting, and I don't think that's necessarily what they set out to do, but I do think, you know, they were obviously influenced by a lot of these bands probably growing up or what they're listening to, and that's typically every band, whatever they write, none of it's really original. They're just kind of playing what they grew up liking, what they want to play, and, you know, they kind of give it their own flavor. I want to go back real quick to What's My Promise Die, because we actually got just a quick note from Emma about it, and I might as well kind of bring it up. And she mentioned that song specifically was written about the overwhelming anxiety of predestined failure. When you commit everything you have to one area of your life, the idea of it falling apart looms with such heavy importance. The song is written from the perspective of toying with that fear, allowing your weakness to overcome before you lose everything in a means outside of your control. So it's always kind of cool, you know, to kind of a little bit of insight, like where their headspace is at when they're writing these songs, because, you know, it just adds some extra texture to it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely deep on that.
Yeah. So, I went back, now I want to go forward. The next two songs, I'm just going to put out, these were my two favorite songs of the album. Then the first one was Pray For Me. And this one, I don't know, just kind of stood out to me. Again, the melodic riffing that you had kind of happening in the background. I'm a sucker for when like you layer guitar. And right now in metal, they're focusing on just low tuned, as dirty as you can get sounding, where you don't even know how many guitars are playing sometimes. This one, I thought, you know, every layer of the instruments were so well established. There was always something for me to kind of pick apart, and it really kept me not guessing, but it kept me engaged, and it kept me like excited to hear what was happening next. And the energy here really is great as it speeds up and then it slows down with the chugs and then it speeds up. It's just, there was a lot of movement here musically that really stood out to me, and it became kind of one of my favorite songs of the album.
Yeah, I actually for Pray For Me, I described the first riff as a stink face riff. Like when you hear it, you're like,
right?
You know what I mean? You get like one of those, oh, dun 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 dun. Like it's just like you're just like, oh shit, that's nasty. Oh, that's nasty. And then this is like perfect explanation for me of this song. Like that's kind of like a stinky face on that. And this has very much like Azalea dying type riffs where they're doing that like that breakdown, and then while they're doing the breakdown, the other person's doing like the riff in the background, like he's constantly going. You know, like that kind of trope. That's what I feel like that. And then this one, when the double kicks kick in around the 1 minute, that to me is at the gates, straight through at the gates kind of style. I don't know if you ever listen to At the Gates, but like if once you hear the album Slaughter of the Soul, you'll hear that and you're like, holy shit, everything is modeled after this album.
I'm gonna have to listen into it then again, guys. I have listened to At the Gates, but it's been a hot minute for sure.
So with all of your, like, I don't know the last time you listened to it, but with all of the knowledge you've had and the years you've been listening to metal, you go listen to that album and you're gonna hear how much that to you, you're gonna be like, oh, this sounds like this and this band, but in fact it's gonna be the other way around, where like, oh, these bands, this is where they got it from.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out for sure. Yeah, because I mean, it's interesting, and again, kind of pulling from like those influences. But this one kind of really stood out. It was the first one out of the first, you know, few songs that came on that really stood out to me, and it also was the one where I didn't. You mentioned actually that, you know, you feel like it pulled influences from like At the Gates and stuff like that. This was the first one. This was the first one for me where like I didn't hear any of that. Right. So it kind of stood on its own for me, which I really like. But my favorite song absolutely on this album was Path to the Grave. And even when I reacted to it, I think I was blown away. I remember liking that song like heavily and had a great time with it. And I think, like, I have to be honest, it goes back kind of to the nostalgic vibes. For me, this was probably the most early 2000s sounding song, and I just absolutely loved it. And this is the one where like I picked it apart. Now I did get again a little bit of insight. So Path to Your Grave was written in mine as Fragments Part 2. Fragments is written about her struggle with her relationship with her stepfather, who was manipulative, controlling, and abusive towards her. That mistreatment has resulted in a lot of unhealthy habits and patterns in her life that she struggled to move on from. So Fragments 1 was her talking about the experience publicly for the first time after expressing her grief. The song concludes with, I would bury you if I could. The song also concludes with the same 7 words, but has a different outlook. Since releasing Fragments, she has grown to a new level of acceptance with her trauma, and this song is about that acceptance. The anger and the hurt is still there, but now it just stings a little less. It has a much more triumphant expression. It's crazy, like, reading this, and again, going back to her mindset as she's doing, like, that's some heavy, heavy stuff, and I almost feel bad, or maybe good now, saying that this is my favorite song, because this is her being triumphant in that expression.
Yeah.
But this
Your
again
pain really helps.
yeah, I mean, and this is the one where, and I wish I could do it here, but honestly it's going to take up too much time if I go and try to find the actual seconds. But there are sections in this where I'm like, this is 100% Bullet for My Valentine, Waking the Demon. This is 100% like As I Lay Dying. This is 100% a Kill Switch Engage chorus. Like, and I could almost put them next to each other with the songs, and they're not going to be a 1-for-1 because obviously they're not, but they're just so heavily influenced by those specific areas. And they may have never even listened to those songs before, but it was just incredible to kind of see the comparisons between those two. And every time they came up, it was like a new trigger for me, and I thought it was fantastic. I love this song.
This song is definitely, it's very catchy. I describe this as like metalcore 101. Like, this is, if you were to show someone, hey, what's metalcore? You play them this song. It's like everything in this song is pieces of like the big metalcore movement that happened, I don't know how old we were, maybe like 15 years ago, right? When it was really booming, like 2005, 2010, right? To me, it's like, it starts off with for the guitar players, and I don't know if you think about it like when you think about guitar like this, but there's the 850 riff. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
So that's right off the bat. They do the 850 breakdown, and then after that, blast beat build up to the Kill Switch Engage chorus. It's like, you hear this chorus, I'm like, that's Kill Switch. Like, it sounds identical to Kill Switch. They have the slow guitar over the fast crash hits, and you have like the slow chord being picked. Like, you just can't, like, it's Kill Switch template, just paste it in there. And I actually thought, I meant to look, do you have it on your sheet who produced this album?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been Adam D, but like, I hear this song and I'm like, okay, did Adam from Kill Switch have a little hand in this one? Because this one sounds heavy on the influence. Heavy on that. Like, that was just, that was the most blatant, and I'm not going to use copy because it doesn't sound like sound like a Kill Switch song that they're copying, but it sounds like it could have come from a Kill Switch, just as chorus alone. And then we get and we end it off with the breakdown. And there's something about their breakdowns on here. I don't know what tuning they're on, but it's something about the tone and the tuning that every breakdown sounds like it's coming from like the first or the second Unearth album. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you and I were kind of on the same page about that, because it's funny how you could pick that apart. But I thought, like I said, it was great. I love the energy. And it was just a lot of fun. And this is one that like I do have in my playlist. This is the one from the album that I do have kind of like in my general playlist that I have, kind of playing all the time, because it's the one that kind of stood out. The next song, Paved in Sorrow, I liked a lot. I like the fact that this album has a song with
Ballad.
cleans. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a ballad type song, which again is very, you know, we're saying it for the 100th time. Take a shot every time we say it, but it's like early 2000s, right? Kind of metalcore vibes. I like that she gets to show off her singing. You know, her harsh vocals are obviously on point. We've got some catchy choruses in here, but here it's a lot of her singing. And this is the kind of like gateway song that gets people into metal, I feel, or or at least me. You know, I listened to a lot of punk growing up, so it was like Sum 41, Blink 182, Simple Plan, like you know, the list goes on and on and on, right? And Sum 41 kind of started dabbing into a little bit of heavier, you know, music, if you will, that kind of pushed me over. But what really drew me into metal was when you got, you know, the songs that had some heaviness to it, but they leaned a little bit more on the clean. I remember listening to Screaming and be like, I don't like the screaming part, but I like the clean part. And then the more you started listening to it, you're like, okay, well, now I kind of like the screaming part. And now all I did listen to is screams, right? I think Paved in the Sorrow is that type of song where someone who really doesn't listen to a whole lot of metal will listen to it. And it's heavy enough, especially during like the chorus, where it's like, okay, I like this, and then you can jump into like some of the other songs. But yeah, I like the fact that they had a cleanish song on here.
Yeah, no, it was a great ballad. It's a great way to break down, you know, everything that's been happening through it. I would say, and this is what I was talking about when I told you Spirit Box vibes, and it may be weird to hear it, but there's things that she does vocally that remind me a lot of Courtney. And it's not that she sounds like Courtney, it's just I get a same aura and a same shiver and vibe when she sings, the same way that Courtney gives me when Courtney sings. So that's what I meant by like that comparison. I don't know if you hear that, but maybe if you go back and listen to it with that in your mind, you might hear it.
Yeah, I'd have to listen to it again with that in mind. It didn't stand out to me like that at all. I did note though that she had a great like voice, and this one I think really kind of showed it off.
Absolutely, this show that like with most screams that are the way that they are on this album, you hear a scream like that and you're like, oh, this person's not ripping any cleans. Like they're straight up just doing screams the whole way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah, it was good to see her shine. The next song, Tongues of Lead. This is a perfect transition compared to the ballad. And while I you know, blessing and a curse, how I feel like a lot of the album kind of meshes together in a way that you're thinking, did I hear this song? It's also a good thing because it's just a constant flow where it's just smooth into the next one. And I feel like based on how the other one, the ballad ended, this comes back to remind you, no, we are still heavy as fuck. And I felt a little bit of black metal influence on this one.
It's crazy that you say that, because I thought I was going to bring that up and you were going to call me crazy. Because the next three songs, I actually put them together: Tongues of Lead, Kiss of Judas, Hell's Final Blessing. I said that they all kind of blended together for me. All three of those songs, they're all 2-minute songs, or 2.5-minute songs. And I don't know if that's the reason why, but I put heavy follow-up with black metal vibes. And it's crazy that you mentioned that, because I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, to me, this is basically, if black metal had breakdowns, this is what it would sound like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mind you, not all black metal, right? Obviously, I'm generalizing because I've heard a ton of black metal, and it's a spectrum on how different it all sounds. But yeah, I would definitely put Tongues of Lead and Kiss of Judas at the top of my list, just because they remind me of other stuff I've loved for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy, because so I don't listen to a whole lot of black metal, or any black metal. Like I couldn't name a black metal band until I just came back from a festival in Mexico that was called the Mexico Metal Fest. Yeah, a little bit. But it was mostly black metal that played there. So for the first time, you know, I was hired on to, you know, take photographs, videos, that kind of stuff. So I was listening to a lot of black metal, and I won't say like it's gonna be my go-to or something that I thoroughly enjoyed. Plus, some of the bands that I listened to were were very interesting, and most of them were from like Norway or Poland or like places like that. Bands like Batushka. I don't know if you heard. There was one that I liked a lot called Midnight, which was kind of they call it like black and roll, which is
Oh, I
kind of
like the
like
sound of that.
yeah. So it's like
You have to
punk.
share these with me after.
I will. It's like punk with black metal. It's really cool. And at the end of their set, they broke the guitars on the stage. So you had that going
Oh,
on.
okay. Always a good use of your guitar. Just to break it on the stage.
But getting back on
never
point,
get it.
that was the
Yes.
first time that I ever listened to black metal, and I don't know if listening to this album so soon after that helped me, because before then I would have never pulled that apart, and it did. It gave me those vibes 100%. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I don't really have anything much to say for the next three songs because, like I said, they all kind of blended together for me.
I mentioned earlier that what song was it that had Starved had a little bit of that old school metal, and Pray For Me had a little bit of the At the Gates in some part. Kiss of Judas is what, like, this intro riff. This intro riff is At the Gates. It's totally At the Gates, a little bit of Arch Enemy, but very much At the Gates. Like, if you ever see these people and they don't know how At the Gates is, I would be shocked that they would not know that. This one is one I want you to come back and listen to after you listen to some of the Slaughter of the Soul album, and then tell me you don't. I'll actually give you the exact song I want you to listen to after. But I love it because I love At the Gates, and Breakdown hits really hard. And then we get like the kind of the kill switch ending. You know what I mean? Yeah, this is At the Gates, Unearth, Kill Switch, mashed all together. Let's jump to Hell's Final Blessing, track 9. This is where I start to get a little tired. It's where they start with a great opening riff, and then we just stop, and then we're like, let's go into our open chug breakdown. It felt forced to me. I don't know if this is a way to tell it, but this is the least played song on the album. I mean, I would love to have these numbers for my own band, but this has 85,000 listens versus the rest, which are over 100,000 and counting, right? So definitely, but by listener standpoint, it's definitely the weakest one on the album. To me, it's my weakest one. It's where I started feeling a little bit of the metalcore fatigue, and this is when I looked at my track list and said, how many songs are left?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was with you. I was with you 100% there, because by this song, I'll be honest, I think by Kiss of Judas, I was already kind of there. But definitely when Hell's Final Blessing came on, I was like, it kind of went back to our conversation around EPs, around how much I appreciate an album that instead of maybe being 11 songs long is maybe 6, maybe 8 songs long, but it's like 6 to 8 bangers, one after the other. And I think by this point in the album, they were kind of losing me a little bit. Now, we can see the amount of care that they've put into the storytelling of the lyrics, which I think, you have to kind of go back and look at. So I'm sure there's Tongues of Lead, Kiss of Judas, Hell's Final Blessing, kind of moving on. It's all kind of tying in the message that they're trying to get on. So probably an important song within the canon of the album, if you will. But yeah, I was with you 100% there. It definitely started to lose me at this point. And it only brought me back just a little bit from Torn From Your Silhouette, because this was the very first song that I reacted to. This was the song where I learned who Dying Wish was. And I remember calling it back kind of like Twilight Core, because if you've seen the video, it's like it has vampires and stuff like that. So it felt to me like a very kind of edgy, kind of Twilight metalcore type song. But I've also listened to this song a lot. So kind of following Hell's Final Blessing, going into Torn From Your Silhouette, again, it didn't necessarily bring me back, just because I had listened to this song so many times before, because this one came out, it had to have been like April of this year, or March even.
Tell me, like, there's a kind of like a pre-chorus type thing part, and you told me this is not Rose of Sharon from Killswitch Engage.
No, 100%.
You know which part I'm talking about? Like, right at 21 seconds, it's just like that. Like, this is like the most blatant one. Like, this sounds so much like it, at least from a guitar standpoint. But then the breakdown comes in, and the breakdown is scary. Like it's got this kind of evil back like guitars behind it while it's chugging away, and it's just dark, and you feel that it's mean, it's angry, it's scary, more so than other ones I feel. And then we get back into this again. We get very much kill switch, metalcore kind of melodic part, and then we get one of the biggest out of the whole album, one of the biggest breakdowns, build-ups that you hear, where it's those ones where you can tell that they're building it up live, and just telling people to get ready, and they're like not going to start the song until everyone gets in pit formation, and then it just, the whole place tears apart. You can hear it in this one. I can visualize Emma commanding the stage and the place exploding when this breakdown hits at the end. Like it's definitely a powerful one.
Yeah, and again, I had here, this is the biggest early 2000s song on here. Mm-hmm. I wrote that in bold, like bold capital letters. So, but it's still, again, all of this that I'm saying it mostly as a positive, because
it's like none of these are shots. It's just, it is like a kind of a coming home thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this leaves them a lot of room to grow, I think, as a band, you know, because it gives them the opportunity to kind of refine that sound. You know, they haven't been, I think they only have one other album, which is Fragments in 2021. Well, they have Dying Wish Serration 2018. So like they're still a newish band, obviously finding themselves. And I think this is a good example of that. The last song on here, interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on it. It is their most played, well, their second most played song. So Torns from Your Silhouette has almost 1 million.
Yeah, that was the highest one.
Yeah, it has almost 1 million.
One, yeah.
Everything else is between 100 to 200, with some of the singles, you know, in the 400 range. Torn from Your Silhouette, almost 1 million listens, but Lost in the Fall is the second highest with 500,000. What did you think?
This to me, I don't know. Here's an interesting comparison, because all these songs are all comparisons, right? Because we've clearly established that. This one, I get Evanescence vibes.
Yeah, interesting.
Like more like the chorus. Before the chorus, at least, it's definitely like very much As Lay Dying. But when I hear the chorus, it reminds me of Fallen era of Evanescence. I'm a massive Evanescence fan, even to like the newest stuff. And definitely like their old stuff. It sounds very dark, very gothic, very heavy. I didn't, I'm sure if I go through the lyrical content, I'm sure it's probably one of the most depressing ones, just from the vibe I get from it. But yeah, I actually really dug this because, like I said, it brought me back to the days. And it's like what you said for another comparison, how it brings you back and how it made you feel. This one made me feel like Evanescence, and Evanescence is a huge part of me kind of growing up. And just getting that vibe from it definitely made it struck a chord, pun intended, deep within me for sure.
Nice, man. So I think overall we're pretty positive on the album. I think, you know, from my perspective, the nostalgic feel, we can say if you're a fan of Kill Switch Engage, Bullet for My Valentine, As I Lay Dying, From Autumns to Ashes, At the Gate, even a little bit of black metal, you know, sprinkled in there, I think this album is definitely worth a listen. I would give this, we don't really do star ratings here, but if I did have to, I would probably give it like a 3 out of 5. I think it's a solid album. It's a great listen. I think the first half of the album is the strongest. Even though there's some great songs kind of peppered in the second half, I think the flow and the feel of the first half really stands out. But then by the second half, it starts to lose a little bit of your interest. But overall, I thought this was a great album. Dying Wish, I think, is definitely gonna, you know, continue growing, making a name for themselves. And I'm really excited to kind of see where they go from here, right? Because they're not shying away from like that old school vibe, but they're definitely adding some modern twists. And I would almost like to see them maybe add more of that kind of black metal flair, right? Or
Yeah.
things to kind of really make them stand out. They're obviously dealing with very heavy and dark themes, so it'd be interesting to see if they can make that, because watch my which one was it? No, Path to the Grave, for example. It's a very fun kind of headbanging song, but the theme is very dark, and not that the music has to always match the theme of kind of what's going on, but I think there's a lot there that can kind of be pulled from. But that's my overall thoughts on the album.
Yeah. Same here. I would say like it's in the middle. If you're saying like 3 out of 5, yeah, 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5 it would be my spot too. It does a lot of things great. It's a great vibe. It doesn't stay with me forever, like for example how Spirit Box did, because of how the songs blend together. But it is a fun ride while you're listening to it. It overstays its welcome just a slight, just with the amount of songs. I think they would have been a little bit stronger, maybe cutting out, I think it was Hell's Final Blessing we talked about, and making it a tight 10 songs. But overall, it's definitely worth a listen. I don't know if you'll ever go back to it, but it's definitely a great time. It takes you back to the old metalcore days. And if you didn't grow up with those, then this might feel fresh to you. And then maybe it might entice you to kind of go back and listen to those days.
Awesome. Well, there you guys have it. That is our thoughts on Dying Wish album. Sorry, I lost the name here. Symptoms of Survival. They are on tour starting in January. You can find them in Sydney and London, which is actually, Australia and England, rather, because I'm seeing the like Manchester, Perth, Sydney. So that's really cool. So if you guys are in those areas, obviously go ahead and check them out. Let's go give this band a lot of love and support, because they need it, right? The follows, the likes, the comments, and the Instagrams, all of that goes a long way. And one of the big things that we want to do with this podcast is obviously promote these bands out there and make sure that more people know about them, learn about them, and give us your own thoughts about these guys. John, as always, an amazing time talking with you. I love just how much we kind of sync up on our thoughts, even though we do absolutely no prep for this. But at the same time, you gave me a lot to think about, and I have to go check out At the Gates now.
Yes, you do.
All right, man.
And everyone else to listen to it, you have to.
There you go. Well, thank you guys once again. We'll see you next time.
Take care.